Hi, this is Lisa Quintana. A short note before we get started. This is our first episode of Living Large in America, and the audio is a little rough. I apologize. Pro tip, kids, do not touch any of the buttons after you have finished your sound check. Thank you so much for bearing with us, and we really hope that you enjoy this first episode of Living Large in America.
And I don't recommend this for everybody. It's just what worked for me.
Look, I don't do public shaming.
We were just this lovely, plump family.
You have to live life right now.
Hi, and welcome to Living Large in America. I'm your host, Lisa Quintana, and today I'm talking to Lara McKusky. Hi, Lara.
Hey, Lise.
I like the little self-deprecating chuckle there. So, what part of the country are you in?
The Mid-Atlantic, Southern PA.
Okay.
It's a tough place to be.
So let's talk about you and your weight journey. So, how old are you, and what's your weight now?
So I'm 42 and 11/12, and I haven't weighed myself in about a month and a half, but I was at about 160. I haven't weighed this much since I was pregnant with my third child in like the 8th month.
Wow.
So that is awful for me. It's kind of horrifying.
So what would you consider your normal weight?
My normal weight, I feel, should be about 125.
Okay.
I'm 5'2". I'm there's 7 people in my family. I have 4 siblings, and I am the shortest person in my family. And, my mom is not a big person. She's always, like, I remember getting up for school in the morning and she'd be doing yoga stretches on the floor and, excuse me. And my dad is, now he's 69, and but growing up he was always 6'1" or so, and of course everybody was taller than me. Everybody looked like a giant, but he was never overweight. That was not a thing in our family ever. And looking back now, I was looking a couple of weeks ago at high school pictures, and I was like, oh my God, I was literally skin and bones. And I played soccer and I ran all the time, and it wasn't for lack of eating. I would eat thirds at the table. And our running joke is, I have 2 sisters and 2 brothers. And our running joke is, McKusky women are not salad eaters. Like we were never the girl you took on a date and it was like, oh, I'll have a salad and a glass of water. Like that was not us. And my brother-in-law, Tim, would say, Kate will eat a salad, but like, that's not the only thing she eats, and we pride ourselves on that. We all walk in the door to family gathering, and the first question is, it smells great, what's for dessert? But my mom always taught us to eat 3 square meals a day, and eat your, carrot sticks or your apple slices, and then you can have a cookie. We were never deprived of sweets. So I just felt like things were very balanced. Then as I got older, I got married very young. I was only 20. And one very hard transition for me at that point was I was used to the cabinets being jammed full because my poor mother tried to buy for everybody. And so now it's just my husband and I. And like you'd open the cabinets and like 20 kinds of, snacks would fall out because that's what I was used to. And it was really hard. It was hard to just cook for 2 because I had started to be taught to cook when I was 12. I'm used to cooking for large numbers of people. So that was a hard transition.
Now, I have a question.
Yeah.
Was your family a clean plate family?
Not necessarily, but you definitely had to try everything at least once. We have a lot of very funny dinner stories due to siblings trying to hide food. But my mom, of course, had worked all day and was like, I'm not throwing good food out. You need to at least try everything at least once. So there was that. It wasn't, none of us were ever made to sit at the table in the dark by ourselves, with a plate of cold food. Like, my mom did not do that kind of stuff to us. It was, please try something at least once.
Have your eating habits changed? Like, how have they changed from when you were a kid to when you were an adult without kids to now you are an adult with kids of your own?
That's fairly complex. So when I got married at 20, I married a man with very, very narrow taste buds. He never ate salad. Pretty immature, so if I made something he didn't like, he would literally spit it out and make gagging sounds and refuse to eat it. He would have a fit if I came home and I hadn't thought, I'd forgotten or whatever, they were sold out, and I had not gotten him the snacks that he wanted. He would storm out of the house and, go buy it himself. So it was like walking on eggshells to cook anything. I couldn't branch out much with him either. I could spend 2 hours on a brand new recipe out of a cookbook, and he might take one bite and throw the fork down and go cook himself some Tyson's buffalo wings and eat that instead, and I'd be at the table eating by myself. So there's kind of there's a lot of, psychological kind of damage in that way. So I went through a very, of course, long period with that and fixing very, very narrow things. And then ironically, when we had kids, he began yelling at them if they didn't clear their plates. And I would look at him and say, you're a grown man, and you would refuse to eat things that I ate and I fixed. But now you're going to tell your child that they have to eat the things you're eating, and they can't have things they don't like, and they can't say no. So we've had kind of a lot of things going on with that, and I do try to give my kids a certain amount of leeway because that's literally just one of the areas in their lives that they can control, is like what they're putting in their mouths.
So yeah, so when your kids were little, it was a lot about food as control.
Absolutely. And then as we got divorced, as we were in the midst of divorcing, we were under the same roof, and I had been a stay-at-home mom. And the very first thing he did when I very firmly refused to go to counseling, that this was it, we were done, he began marking everything he bought at the store with his name and told me I couldn't eat anything he had purchased. My parents had to start sending me money because he also then opened a new bank account and transferred his paycheck so that I had no money. And we were trapped in the same house. And he was terrorizing me, and I literally could not eat anything he had. I lost 14 pounds in about 6 weeks.
Wow.
And I was eating peanut butter and jelly. I was eating frozen waffles. He would not even allow me to feed our children things he had purchased.
Wow.
When it was quote unquote my time, because he had decided, per his attorney, we were going to immediately establish a custody routine within the house. And so when I would drive an hour to Maryland from Southern PA to see my parents, my mother would give me a bag and go shop my pantry. Or I'd go home with 4 bags of groceries, and I'll be damned if he didn't start eating from my food stashes. And so I would have to label everything. And then he'd put laughing faces on my stuff, and he would just he'd graffiti my stuff. And I'm like, this is redunculous. It's like I'm living with the Joker for real. So it was really, really hard. And of course, with all of the stress, I also didn't want to eat. That's like my first symptom of depression, is that I don't want to eat. I lose my appetite. My anxiety sits in my belly and I don't want to eat. And so I lost all that weight. I was working 2 very small part-time jobs. I was just horribly stressed out. And so we were eating the cheapest thing you can buy is breakfast for dinner. And so I was buying huge loaves of the challah bread, and I'd make, and eggs, of course, are cheap, and we'd have scrambled eggs, or I'd use the eggs to make French toast. I'd go to Sam's Club, and I would get, bulk of waffles, because the kids loved waffles. And I had to meal plan at that point, where I was literally like, you may have a Go-Gurt with a waffle and I have a couple blueberries, because I only had the money that I was making from a part-time job at UPS and a part-time job at a comic book store, and the money that my parents could send me whenever they could.
So what was your view of yourself? I mean, it sounds like this relationship was kind of abusive and controlling, and you, as a result of this, you're losing a lot of weight. But how did that affect your view of yourself?
That's a really hard one. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to feel strong. But every time he came anywhere near me, I was terrified. I felt helpless. I tried to make myself as small as I could, and I wanted to be invisible whenever I could be. The only time that I flared into light was if my kids were being threatened in any way. That would be the only time that I would sort of step out and step in front of him and, say something. Otherwise, I didn't want to do anything that would rile him up, because he would just start screaming at me, and I didn't want the kids to see that. I mean, they were little. My kids were 2, 4.5, and 6.5. And my daughter was 2, and she just wanted to be with mommy all the time. And he would literally rip her out of my arms and carry her away screaming and say, this is daddy time.
Aww.
And I used to not be able to relate that story without bursting into sobs, because that was my nightmare. That was my persistent nightmare. I mean, I have a diagnosis of PTSD at this point, and that was the worst time, hands down, in my life, was that 11 months we spent under the same roof while I slept on a blow-up mattress in the spare room, and he slept in the master bedroom but with a padlock on the door, so I couldn't get in there. I had never been in a position where I couldn't access food, where I had to ask my parents for money, where, that was the primary concern when I got paid, was like, I have to go to the grocery store and I have to put gas in my car. It was a very abrupt change.
Yeah.
I had never been controlled through food.
Yeah, that's surreal. And I have heard, yours is not the only story I have heard where in an abusive relationship, the abuser is super controlling of food. I have experienced it as well, and it is terrifying, because that feels as not just like as life-threatening as physical abuse, because physical abuse is like, okay, this person is punching me and this is going to hurt me, but it feels punishing in addition
because
to scary.
It is a slow death.
Yes.
Because they are taking away a basic need.
Yep.
Because, that all I kept thinking was, I have an education degree. All I'm thinking is like, this is Maslow's, triangle of needs. There was just a lot of stuff going on all at once. I mean, he immediately went to work cutting off all of our basic needs and cutting that safety net out from under me. So I ended up getting a blow-up mattress, sleeping in the now empty spare bedroom, and not being able to eat. And, my friends would invite me over for dinner because they knew what was happening. And they'd be like, have you eaten this week? And, and friends can only do that for so long. 4 months in, it was like, nobody's invited me over all month. And that's fine, because it's not their responsibility. But, as you know, when it's your crisis, it's your crisis.
Yep.
And for them, it's just something nice to do for a while, but it's not their crisis. And so that falls away after a while.
So what did self-care look like after that?
I tried to get some therapy. I found someone who specialized in sensitive people, because that's really what I am. I am 100% an empath. And I was like living my pain and my children's pain, which was terribly difficult. As I said, whenever I am moving through depression and stress, my stomach just shuts down. There is no eating. And I have also discovered that, of course, the more you sleep, the better your body functions, and you are less likely to store more fat, because your body isn't in any kind of panic mode. Like, what is the crisis? Is it an apocalypse? We must be having a famine because you're hardly sleeping. And it's like, nope, it's just my life. So it's rough.
So do you credit a lack of sleep with some of the weight gain you've had as you get older?
I think that once I went through, I got out away from him physically, then I went through 2 years of more terrible stress. I love my family, but living with my parents as an adult, considering I moved out when I was 20. Just going to say it was a unique kind of stress, and we're going to move on because my mom's probably going to listen to this. Sorry, Mom. So I was ready. I was ready to be back with my kids. I'm up here. I have virtually no money because the school doesn't pay for shit. And I'm on food stamps now. So that's super humiliating and shaming and all of those good things if you've never been through that process. They pick everything apart. They want to know your whole history. They want to know, and this really pisses me off about this whole process. The court system, the IRS, the welfare system, they all refer to you and your ex as a household, even though you're divorced.
I was also, when I was a kid, our family was on food stamps. And this is a thing that I remember. And I don't know if you have had the same experience, but I remember my mom always had a weight problem. She was always overweight. And I remember how self-conscious and horrible she felt when we would go to the grocery store with our food stamps. And this is back in the days before food stamps were essentially a debit card. This is when you actually had like coupons.
Yep.
And all of the groceries get picked apart because there's stuff that can and can't be bought with food stamps. And then they're looking at my mother, who is on the larger side, and you know that they are thinking, you don't need to eat this. And
anything like processed or sugary.
Yep. And never mind the fact that she was a single parent with 4 children to feed. Like, you don't need this. And that shame is just like greasy shit that sticks to you. And knowing that these people are not just judging the fact that you are poor, but also the fact that you are larger than you should be, which obviously means that you are too self-indulgent, that, that they may not see it on the conveyor belt, but they know that you're at home eating bonbons and sitting on your butt.
Well, right, because there's that laziness component that is associated with it, right?
Exactly.
It's funny. So there is a binder on Facebook that I'm pretty good friends with, and she published a book about being poor and on food stamps, and we were having a private conversation about talking about her experiences in public using them and how this elderly man was doing a for shame, kind of thing. And she said, and I just didn't know what to say. And she was talking to me because she was getting ready to write an article, and I had volunteered to, be quoted for her about my own experiences. And he made some comment about, for shame and like spending my good money on your food, blah, blah, blah. And I said, you know what? You should have said, and how's it going with my Social Security money? And she was like, damn, I didn't think of that. And I said, tuck it in your pocket, honey. You can use it next time because there'll be a next time. And she said, same thing. I always feel so self-conscious, like they're eyeing up what I buy. And I said, you know what, honey? I don't give a shit. I buy whatever I want. And she was like, really? And I go, fuck yeah. Because after I worked at one point 5 jobs and I finally sit down at 10 o'clock at night, I said, if I fucking want to eat frozen scalloped potatoes for $10 a box, that's fucking what I get to treat myself with. Because literally, that is the only money that I can spend without measuring out every damn dollar. I can't go buy a new pair of pants. I can't buy a nice pair of shoes. I can't afford, I gotta drive my car until the tire tread's completely gone and they won't freaking, put the new sticker on my car to pass inspection. I'm like, this is the only place where I can choose to get what I want. And I am going to get what I want. Because as of right now, they haven't told me that I can't fucking buy cheesy, expensive scalloped potatoes. So fuck you.
So it's still a control issue for you. This is a place where you have control, like that hasn't been wrested away from you.
Well, yeah. I mean, to me, it's like, how fucking dare you tell me what I can put into my body? Mm-hmm. How dare you? I was at a convention 2 days ago with my coworkers. There were 4 of us. And they had the best food. Oh my God, they had the best
Wait a minute, what? A convention that has really good food? I am suspicious.
And we were like, dude. And my boss was like, so do you think, it was the first year we'd gone to this one, and my boss was like, so what'd you guys think? Should we go back? And Amy is only 24 to my 42, and we look at each other and we're like, just for the food, we're coming back next year, right? And we were laughing. And so we come out, and they've replaced in the two hallways they had separating the ballrooms. They had like tea and lemonade and stuff out, and they had a chocolate fountain. Wait, it gets better. And they had out bowls, and they had pretzels and marshmallows and strawberries, right? And the guys are like, why do they have these random bowls of strawberries? And of course, Amy and I recognize the situation for what it is immediately. And we're like, ooh, and I'm like picking up a stick. Yep. And I'm like, we pull it, and they had plastic wrap very loosely laid over. And we thought, okay, it's just protecting everything from drying out, right? So we lift it up, and I stab a strawberry, and I'm walking over to the fountain, and then my boss is looking at the fountain, and he's like, is that chocolate? And we're like, oh my God, you are a denzoid. And we're, getting ready to stick it in there. And this tall, skinny, angry looking lady comes over, and she's tapping her wrist, and she goes, ladies, this station is not open for 7 more minutes. And we're like, too late. And we stick our strawberries in, right? Why would you put temptation out like that? So rude.
7 minutes.
Right? Get over it, bitch. So we stick our strawberries in there, and we're like speed walking. In the meantime, my boss and our other male coworker are like, we do not know them. And they have sort of moved on, right? And Amy and I are like really picking up the pace. Well, this guy who was, 60, 65 is sort of like following us. And it's like, oh, ladies, for shame. Look at you. Blah, blah, blah. Shaking his finger at us. I am chewing a very large chocolate-covered strawberry at first, right? So I cannot respond. But my brain is going. And we round the corner out of the hallway, and Amy is giving him looks while she's chewing. And I finally swallow my strawberry, and I go, look, I don't do public shaming. No regrets. And Amy's like, totally worth it. And we just like run to the foyer. And I was like, that was the fucking best. I just could not believe the nerve that this man had. It didn't one thing to just be like, oh, shame, ladies, as we ran by. But he followed us, yelling and carrying on about it. And I'm like, get out of my space.
Now, do you think if you had been like young and skinny and really cute, do you think that he would have done that?
I have to tell you, Amy is gorgeous.
Okay.
She's 24. She's curvy. She's got an adorable smile, a great giggle, big green eyes, blonde hair.
Okay.
She was far ahead of me, though, and he was talking to me.
Yeah.
It was kind of a ho, 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 look who got in trouble kind of attitude. And I'm like, are you just trying to get in on the attention because everybody was kind of giggling and pointing at us? And everybody then started, the looks really changed because he kept going like, dude, what is your problem? And
that is fucked up. That's super weird.
Right? It was weird. And I was like, are you trying to get our attention? Are you trying to jump into our little bubble of attention? Are you like, I don't understand what your motive is here, dude. And of course, he was much older than either one of us.
Right.
So it was, and I was just kind of like, it was just odd that it also was jump started at kind of snatching food. We didn't stop and put it down. We grabbed strawberries and chocolate and we ran, and we weren't apologetic.
But the weird thing to me is that those chocolates and the chocolate and strawberries were meant for you. Here is food that is meant for you. This is, and shaming you for enjoying the food meant for you. So weird.
If I thought that, because of course our name tags must have been 8 inches by 8 inches. They were the biggest freaking convention tags I've ever seen in my life. And they had, of course, our company name and our full name on it twice. I would have literally said, something more like, I don't fucking do public shaming, but I thought, I don't want to get everybody else in trouble. So I just was like, I don't do public shaming. And then he was like, oh, and then he kind of laughed. But it was like, do you realize even what you're doing? And how completely inappropriate, because he wasn't like, hey, funny, and then walk away. He was trying to keep pace with me. That, I think, has been what is so helpful to me as I've gotten more into feminist culture, is like finding a vocabulary that helps me tell people to fuck off. That's been very helpful.
That is huge. That is huge, because
it really
there are so
is.
many times when it is appropriate as a human being to tell other people to mind their own fucking business. But I feel like we are caught up, especially women, and especially people whose bodies do not conform to some societal ideal. Like, you, by virtue of not being perfect, you should be ashamed. And your shame should cow you into obedience. You should desire to be invisible. You should,
Right.
and
or you should desire to please me. You should desire to want to conform.
Right, and
you should,
and your very lack of conformity is rebellious and shameworthy, and therefore anything that you do that I disagree with, I may call you out in public. And that is such phenomenal crap.
Yes, I completely agree. And it's just the synchronicity in my life lately has been a little mind-blowing. But so I got us off food stamps coming up on a year ago. And it was a little scary, but there's also a lot of freedom in, even though I was pretty rebellious about what I was buying when I was on food stamps, self-checkouts became all the rage right about halfway through when I was using them. And I was like, woohoo! And I told my writerly friend, so make self-checkout your friend. I said, then you don't have to worry. I said, I would literally be having a super great chatty conversation with a cashier. And when she said, okay, your total is $128. And I go, okay. And I'd pull out my card and she'd go, oh, so you just slide that through there. I'm like, her entire demeanor would change. She wouldn't necessarily be rude or mean to me, but she would go from like, oh my God, we could totally be friends, to, oh, slide your card through there. And I never had anybody call me out. I didn't feel like anybody was staring at me. But, people can still definitely get across how they feel about it.
Oh, yeah.
So I started going to self-checkout. And she was like, really? I was like, oh, yeah. Nobody to talk to there. The machine doesn't give a crap how you pay. And, it still was a relief to get off of them and still have the freedom to buy whatever you wanted. And then I was worried about, I was working a lot of hours, and I was worried about, buying things that were shortcuts for me, or eating the same thing 6 nights in a row. Okay, we're having white rice in the steamer with chicken. Okay, didn't we just do that 2 nights ago? And it's like, dude, then put gravy on it instead of soy sauce. There you go. It's
so I have a question.
now.
I have a question. When you were a kid, did both your parents work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so
my dad worked a ton of hours, though, and he was on call. Then my mom was a medical transcriptionist. She worked for many years actually in office, so she generally had like an 8:30 to 5 job. Lots of work.
There were 2 parents there, so a lot
Absolutely.
of the parent stuff, got split up between your parents.
Divvied up. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and therefore neither one of them was stretched as thin as you are, and yet you are kicking yourself for looking for ways to save yourself a little bit of hassle, which is crazy. Are any of your kids overweight?
Gabriel is my middle child. He's 13. He came home and he was like, Mom, they gave me this at school. And he's like, I wanted to know what it said. And this thing says that I am overweight. And I said, dude, BMI doesn't mean crap. I said, I am not worried about you. And I did say to him, dude, I know that you don't want to go outside and play because there's nobody here your age. And I understand that. I said, but you are sitting a lot because you are on video games all the time. I said, I wish you were more active because it's better for your body. I said, but I'm not worried about you.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about you. I said, just ignore that crap.
So there are just so many reasons why BMI is bullshit. And yet it is the standard by which everyone judges.
I know. And it's like, even though many, many people are aware that it doesn't work, it's still being used and sent home to people's kids' parents. Why are they doing that? There's got to be a ton of parents that are not educated about that, And then what are they doing to their kids?
This is the same as the guy following you down the hall going tisk, tisk, tisk. This is the school district following you down the hall and going tisk,
Yes.
tisk, tisk. You're
Tisk,
feeding
tisk,
your
tisk.
kid too much.
And that's our show for today. We really hope that you enjoyed our talk with Lara McKusky. And if you did, go ahead and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, all of those places that you're getting podcasts now. Go ahead and recommend us to a friend. Join us on Facebook. If you'd like to be part of the conversation to tell your story, email us at info@livinglargeinamerica.com. We hope that you have a great week. Stay healthy. We'll see you next time.